Um, Hello. So I'm going to show you how to unmute. Just a moment if you don't know how. So there you go. Oh, there it is. So you'll welcome to everybody as you're joining in. I'm just going to put up some info here. So I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. Yes, you can. So this is the mute button. This turns on your video. You can do that anytime you like. If you want to interrupt or interject, and since we're quite a small group, that should be not a problem. This is the request to present that I have to approve. This is used to present slides that are already uploading. We don't use that much. And this is to put your hand up or join the queue if we have a list of people that are waiting to go. And we're not such a small group, we probably won't do that. So I'm just going to also point at the mute button. There it is. Try unmuting. And in some browsers, you have to give mic permission each time, which is dumb, and others you don't. So anyone else want to unmute and say something?
Hello, Jérôme.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, Jerome. And Martin, thank you for joining us today. And Steve, Martin, we didn't hear you. Steve, I heard a blip from you, then that was all.
I just said hello.
Hello.
Was it a good hello or a bad one?
I thought it was a good hello. One problem I have with Meet Echo is the mute and unmute is actually has like a fair bit of latency in the sense that you click on mute, you say hello, and then you mute again, and usually it didn't actually happen. So you actually have to wait for it to finish this little animation when it unmutes you. Martin, we're still not hearing you. Could you have another microphone mute on? One in your desktop or on your microphone cord? I have a solution. I have solved the problem of the microphone mute because you see what I've done is I put a piece of Scotch tape on it on mine so that I can never mess with it again. And that solves my problem. So we're going to give it like another minute and a half and see who else shows up. Surprised we don't have Dave.
Dave has some issue in a car, so he may join, but a bit later.
Okay, Spencer's boss enforced a meeting on him that ends in about 15 minutes, so he'll be joining us then. So while you're sitting here waiting for another minute, you could go to the draft agenda and scroll to the bottom, or I could do that, and we could look at the minutes from the previous meeting if you were there, have any comments about that. And in the chat, I will paste the URL as well.
Hello.
Hello, Martin. Welcome. You found the mute button.
No, it was not the mute button. For some reason, it seems my device was simplex instead of duplex. I don't know what happened.
I've had that problem before. Yeah.
Very
I usually
strange. As soon as I started talking, I couldn't hear you anymore.
I usually use this one, online mic test, to find out whether or not it works. And apparently it all lives in your browser. It doesn't actually announce anything. So that's I like that one anyway, to know for sure if it's really getting all the way through. All right, so I guess we should start here. So I'm going to, got some names in here. Wonderful. Martin, Steve, Michael Meter here. And that's it. There's 4 of us. We have Christian, who's just a lurker by Jabber, and Jérôme. There. Any comments on the minutes from the previous meeting? I also posted them by email. Shouldn't write this in for yet. Steve, some comments?
No, it's okay.
Anybody else? Any objections? Okay. So we've all seen the note well many times. There it is. And the major one is, if you're aware of any patent or patent applications that's controlled by you or your sponsor, you must disclose it. And you agree that this session may be recorded. And if you don't want your face shown, then don't turn on your video. And we also have this code of conduct that we're trying to make sure that everyone is aware of. It's been around for quite some time, but people want to make sure that people have really seen it. It's contained in BCP 25 and 54, so that you all can know that. So this is the status of our drafts today. The only real update is FFV1 was reposted a couple of days after the last meeting. Thank you very much. And the rest of them, probably we could be posting progress more, particularly Matroska as we go along. So previous status was talked about Jérôme. And there's this action here that I've kept for old business, so we're going to come back to that when Spencer's around. We had the question before, which we did not answer, whether we're going to do an update for EBML, and whether we're ready to actually submit a working group draft yet, to include whatever errata that has arrived. And just because we post it doesn't mean it's done. It's just there. But we did agree before that it was after Matroska is out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to proceed until Matroska is out, so we know that if there's any errata, that we can include it.
Yeah, and by Matroska, that's the main document, not the
main document,
tags or codecs.
And because I think that we found bits and pieces of EBML that were wrong when we were doing Matroska, right?
Yeah, and also I think since the RFC has been published for EBML, more people got interested and looked and tried to implement it as well. And we got some reports here and there. So yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. Also, one of the things that we can do, if we have some 2 implementations. So when was this came out? This came out in 2020. in July. So and its status is that it is a proposed standard, and so the IETF has now two levels of standards. We have proposed standard and we have internet standard. We used to have three levels: proposed, draft, and full, and we collapsed the draft and the full into one thing. And so after a document has been out there for 2 years and has at least two interoperable implementations, then we can ask the document to be revised to the internet standard. And one way is that it's just if there's no text changes required, then it's just an administrative bit that's tweaked. Since we are changing the document, improving it, then we could, if we thought it was ready, to make that propose that as a to be an internet standard. And it's just it's like getting an extra medal at the end of the race, really.
Does it matter if we need to do errata after that, or it's
No,
unrelated?
it's if we had further errata, that may argue for it could argue that we weren't really ready, or it could argue that we need to accept it. So I think that decision, I think we should leave to the very end. We should simply say, okay, we're going to respin it, and we'll decide whether we're going to iterate at proposed standard or whether we want to ask for the next level or not. And I think we can just leave that for the next, for later.
And by different implementations, do they have to all do all the what's in the document? For example, there's the the unknown size that's not well supported in many players. Are they considered valid implementations anyway? I mean,
well, so there's two things. One is that if it turns out there's bits and pieces that are not completely well implemented, then we may actually note that in the document and say these have not yet occurred. A second possibility is that we would say they are not implemented and no one cares about them and we should remove them. And a third possibility is that we should wait and not declare it as an internet standard until we have seen a more significant amount of interoperability. That basically depends upon what are the impacts of not having the feature. So, if we were building a VPN product and it turned out that no one had actually tried doing encryption, then you might say that, well, it's not really a standard yet because no one's actually completed the private part, just the virtual network part. So that might argue for, okay, we're not ready. But if someone said, oh, well, we never actually tried encrypting with 256-bit keys, well, we might say, well, that's just a detail. And we know it works with 128-bit keys. So that's good enough, right? Later people, when they feel the need for stronger encryption, will do that. And that's okay.
And I think we're in a different position from all of that, is that it's quite an old format now, actually, and there's lots of implementations. It's just that a lot has been left on the side, and like for hardware like TVs or streamers, things like that, no one is going to update the code ever just because we released an RFC. But they play the files just fine, not just all the features.
I agree with you. I mean, exactly. So I don't think that's an issue. That in fact may argue for that the subset that those old implementations implement should be noted, that if you want to be fully interoperable with everything, then don't use this feature, or this feature, right? And that's okay. They can still exist in the document. It's just they are not fully, standardized yet, or there's some caveats if you use them, or, something like that, to that. So, and the other question about this is, to what extent is this about EBML versus is it about Matroska? And it might be that we actually can't advance until Matroska advances, because you actually have to have something to play, right? So I suspect that may be the case.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so with that, let's go on to Matroska and whatever issues that you think we need to discuss as a group. There are, and that kind of stuff. Let me see. You found the mute button, so I'll close that. Is there something you'd like me to bring up at this point?
I merged a few ones recently because I think there was consensus. I also updated part of rewrite of the time definitions, because there are 2 or 3 different time bases in Matroska, and before it was all scattered in the document. Now I just define different ticks for each clock or each time base. I think it's clearer. And you may remember I was trying to do sample precise timestamps, and it seems that although it could work, it's never going to be backward compatible, so there's no real need to go in that direction. So basically, I just removed that part and simplified the thing. I got some comments, but more or less it's ready. Actually, comments of bugs, but they're already fixed before, so I think it's clean. I also found, if you look at the, where are you? In the tab, it does 2 marked as bugs. I think these we can merge. Let me check. Oh no, this one is something that Martin Bello was talking about a lot in the past, about chapter time end being mandatory or not. And I found out that it was needed to be mandatory for all the chapters, but then in the example I made, I realized that if you go 1 level up, it just doesn't work anymore. So now only the lower level of nested chapters is mandatory, the others are not, and actually should be discarded. So I changed that text again, and I think we need some more review on that. There's also 578 that we discussed to help the YANA registry generation for when we're published, so they don't have to go through the document and possibly make errors. I don't know if they have tools to generate it from the spec or something like that.
No, they would like the summary in the IANA considerations area. Yeah.
Okay, so I made a tool to generate it from the XML source. It looks a bit like the EBML one, so I think it's at least usable. You can always do some search and replace for whatever format they use. The only main difference I have with what I generate is that I don't fill the gaps, between the IDs. I saw on EBML that for every value, whenever there's a gap, they add an entry and say, well, this is unused for now, unassigned. Uh, because in XSLT, I don't know how to do that. I didn't do it. So they would still need to generate that part, but at least the actual values, they are all there sorted the way they do it.
Maybe we could say any values not indicated are reserved in some text.
Yes, but not reserved. I think reserved is a special word. Like if we don't want people to use it, like we already have two values that are reserved because we know we're going to use them for chapter codex, but they're not really defined properly. But yeah, I think the language is unassigned. I mean, we can say that in the actual text, but in the end, I think it's almost obvious that the values that are not defined are unassigned, unless it says they're reserved.
I think that's fine. So the RFC editor might reformat that in the final document, or
Oh yeah,
explain. But
it's just
let's
to help.
I think that what you've done is probably fine.
And I
Hard
think
for
you
me to
can actually get the, if you want to see the result XML file in the, so if you go in 578, when it checks that the generation works, where is it? Normally, yeah, if you, there's a tab where you, on the top, if you go on top,
here, checks.
Yeah, the checks, yes. And then on one of the, if you go on whatever, somewhere, yeah, at the bottom, no, before or down, I don't know. In summary, go back in summary, top left. And at the bottom, you have artifacts.
Oh, there we go.
So there's a zip with all the files we generate, and there's the XML that would be the YANA file that is generated. You know, IETF-XML at the bottom.
So there's the output.
Yeah. So I use the format that looks like the EBML YANA document, which is actually an XML file with an XSL style sheet. So it's pretty much straightforward.
Sounds great.
But yeah, one other thing compared to what they have is that in their case, each element is linked to the section where it's defined with the number of the section, but we don't know that number until the file is generated, and then it's separately generated and separately, and we have no idea actually to know which of the anchors we have in the source goes to what value in the output. So I didn't put the actual numbers, I put the anchors that we use. Maybe they can have a tool to generate that. I don't know.
I think we could fix that up afterwards. I think that it's unusual for people to generate this mechanically like this. But we could generate it mechanically once, and when we're done, and then we could fix it if we need to.
Yeah, I
Just
don't
check it in.
expect to update it back and forth. So it's just to give them something they can start from.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. So, are you ready to post a new version of the document after these things are merged?
I would like 521 to be merged. I hope this week it can be done. It's the Matroska ticks. So basically the 2 or 3 time bases. I think it's okay. The fonts, I don't remember. It says there's a change requested from Moritz, but I think it's actually okay. I did everything he asked. I think it's just not well or not available, so I don't know if we'll hear from him. So we could actually merge that one. I think that's the 2 ones we need.
So let me ask this question. So we have things marked bug in the issues and in the pull requests, and so I guess those are ones we need to fix. And
they are the fix.
yeah. So, but in the issues here, we have things that are marked bugs, and they presumably have a fix, right? Like this one, fix the IANA, right? I think that's actually fixed. I don't know if this is fixed by somebody.
No, it's for the tags, so we don't work on tags right now.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is that is there a how are things that issues or pull requests that you feel need to be completed for the document to be complete? How is that being marked right now?
So let me send you the link that I use. It's easier. Where is it? Chat.
Yep. 2 bubbles.
I don't know if it doesn't go through.
Yes. I got it.
Yeah. So I use that link, which is basically filtering only the Matroska specification, so leaving out the codec things, the tags, and also some label control track, which is some other document as well. Also Matroska v5, which is basically everything we'll add in the future, even though it could be done now. So basically that just gives you exactly the list of what's left, in my opinion, for the document. And so if you look on the right, almost all of them has a linked pull request. So that's basically the pull request we need to fix. After that will be good. The ones that don't have a pull request, I don't remember.
3 of them here.
Yeah, I don't remember, like the color space. Oh yeah. So yeah, I made 548, which more or less fixes that, except that it needs some better text, but it's a codec thing. It's not. Maybe I'll just change the project to codec now.
Okay.
And then it will not appear in the list because the part that's in the spec is done.
Okay.
So that one is done. Menus. Oof, that's old. Okay, I'll have to look at that one because I don't remember, and that's from Ashley from a long time ago. And the last one, oh yes, I don't think it's a priority or even something that will end up in the specs. It was just a way to describe the macro scale, but in text.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't fall in the actual spec. So yeah, they all have a linked pull request that needs to be merged. And so basically the other link I use, which went through, is the same filter, but for pull requests. And in that list, you have 9 pull requests open, which more or less correspond to the issues on the other tab.
Okay, cool.
So once we have closed these 9, for me, the document is ready to be published. I mean, for review.
Cool. All right. That's wonderful. Do you want to publish? Is there a point in the next 2 months that you think you'll want to publish? You'll want to publish a new version, or do we need to wait for all 9 to be done?
Not all 9, but I think the timestamp, so 521, the fonts 115, at least these 2. The other ones, well, the Yana, we can even merge now. I mean, it's not really part of the document.
Please do. So let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to push the button. I want you to do it. Okay. That's wonderful. Any other comments from anyone else?
So that leaves 8 pull requests. There's 2 I'm pretty sure are okay. The alpha mode, I don't remember.
So, Jérôme, I would love to have the same conversation about FLAC. Oh, no, sorry. Martin is working on FLAC. Do you want me to pull that up? Where is it? Maybe you don't have as many issues or as many pull requests, but let's just talk about where we're at. Two days ago. Woohoo. There he is, Martin. Any comments? Is there something you think that would benefit from the group looking at together? Or is it just
well, the thing I mentioned in the email, I'm not really sure whether some of the pull requests add something to the document that is what's the word? Appropriate for the internet standard.
Okay.
Because I added 2 appendices, one with numerical considerations and one with really verbose examples. That's 120. Because in the past I've seen that quite a lot of people are attracted to trying to implement a FLAC decoder that don't have any experience in the field or anything similar. So I had the idea, the examples mostly they help with that when for people, the document is quite, how do you say it? It's sometimes handy to have an example.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually, this is very good kind of appendix kind of content. It actually, if it's helpful to an implementer, then I think that include it. We don't always do this in IETF documents. It's probably a bug that we don't do it more often. Um, but implementation advice, particularly in a non-normatively in an appendix, makes sense to me.
In appendix or in introduction, actually, because we used to define everything at the beginning of the document.
Sure, that makes sense. But in this case, what he's giving is he's telling people, here's some advice when you're coding, right?
Well, that's the numerical consideration section.
Yeah.
This section with the examples are 3 example files with an files. You can there's a hexadecimal interpretation you can really convert into a FLAC file, which works with coder that's complying to the format, and then in this section it really says at this point, at this byte, you see so many bits that code for this. So it's really a step-by-step decoding by hand.
No, yeah, this part I was speaking to the other PR, the appendix numerical considerations. It looks like more some definitions and some vocabulary about the audio, and it may be good to put it in introduction, maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If it turns out that the appendix would like to use some terminology which has not yet been defined, but would be good to define in the document, well, by all means do that. That even if you introduce those terms in the introduction only so you can use them in the appendix, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's okay, because it also means that when two people are having a conversation in email, right, about what they're doing here with this, then they'll have some terminology already done, right?
Okay, I don't know which terminology is introduced in
I don't know,
consideration
Jérôme.
section.
Now, this is the numerical considerations part. It looks like that some part of that is useful for understanding the specification itself. After, am I wrong or?
Well, I don't feel that because when you choose a 64-bit signed data type for all arithmetic in any FLAC encoder, you're safe and it works. The thing with the numerical consideration is that usually using a 64-bit signed data type isn't really the fastest way to implement a decoder. But if you want to make just a good decoder that doesn't have to be fast, you can skip this whole section.
Okay.
When you have when you want a little faster, you have to, or when you have to implement it in a DSP or something, a portable device, you cannot always use 64-bit signed data. You can use this section to see when can I use 32-bit or 16-bit even. But the decoder and when you have to create multiple data paths, one for a wide and one for a small dip, there are considerations when to use one. How to do the runtime selection.
Okay,
that's the idea of the numerical considerations.
I'm okay. I'm all for including this stuff. I think that Jérôme, I think you should read it again. And if there are some words that you think belong in the introduction, then let's flag them. Okay.
Okay, and for the example, yeah, it is relatively big, and I am wondering if it is useful to be in the RFC or in a document in the FLAC repository. So
I don't know. Perhaps it's moved elsewhere, but not sure what kind of story is.
Michael, do you think it is
Examples
useful in
are
VRC?
extremely valuable in the document. These are worked out examples, so that's really really good, because it means that someone can come back and feed that through their implementation and see that they get the values here. This is like awesome that, that it says each one, that there's 4 bits and what the value is and what does it mean.
Okay, so we need to specify that it is for information only. So if there is a mismatch between the example and the specification is the more important.
Yes, obviously. Oh, how I can make that with or some marker or something that it is marked informational, or that it just has to be in text. Anyway, that's
so basically what you say this informational appendix. That's basically it. The other thing I recommend is that you start all of your sentences on a new line, but I'm not going to change that for that. I'm not there. It just makes it easier to edit later on.
Okay.
But it's best to do that as a single commit that changes the white space, essentially. So I propose.
The issue I see with that kind of detailed example is that it has to be foolproof. If there's an error in it, there's an issue if you lead people in the wrong direction.
Yes, it obviously has to be checked very well. That's why I do at the end of each example. I did everything obviously. So I did check with the MD5 signature that value correct. But there can be a mistake in there.
Okay.
Sorry, I was being interrupted. So I heard Steve say that the example has to be good and can't lead people into the wrong direction, and I agree with that.
Yes.
So that just really means that someone else has to walk the example through, who understands, who's implemented as well. That's really, I think, the needed part. And as long as we can do that, then I think we're good.
One of the when I was writing the examples, I actually found a few bits in the specification that needed a little more clarification.
Yes.
Just before this meeting, I found some that I example, and I found some I added to another PR because specified how escape particular that they were assigned to. But I think these examples can also help for people proofreading RFC, which don't know anything about FLAC, about cross-reference, something unclear in the specification. A proofreader can perhaps put the example and make this should be more verbose or worded otherwise.
Okay, cool. So I think you're making great progress. I think you should merge your things and post a new version as soon as you're comfortable with that. And then, we can come back and figure out what issues are in this list that we need to address, or which ones are, maybe irrelevant in the end. Some of them may be quite old. Yeah. 2017, maybe. we can close some
Yeah,
of
I could
these.
tag a few that obsolete or no longer relevant.
All right. In the name of time, let's go on to talk about FFV1 if there's something to talk about.
Not really. I didn't touch it.
Okay, that's cool. I know you're very busy on this.
It is still on the to-do list, yes.
That's great. Cool.
I don't have write access to the repository, so I can't merge.
Oh, you don't?
No,
well, let me fix that
will.
immediately.
Not a problem. I like it's better when someone else merge me.
Yes, I can do that. I can merge when it is okay.
Collaborators, well. So your what was it? STF? No. What was your identity?
KTMF01.
That's not right. KT. Oh.
Yes, that one.
All right. I think that's the right permission. If you need more, then let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else to talk about today? Our next meeting is not that day, because that's today. What is it? Our list is here. So our next meeting is the 22nd. Any other business today?
No.
Well,
right.
I had one thing about ABML. I just of it. You said for a proper station you need 2 independent implementations.
Yep.
But when does that mean 2 Matroska implementations should be fine, or should it be 2 implementations of EBML, one of Matroska and one of someone else using for something different than Matroska?
It actually, I think, is better if it's 2 Matroska, because if it was something who implemented Bob with EBML and someone that implemented Frank with EBML, we wouldn't expect them to interoperate at all, would we? Right? Because they don't do the same thing.
Obviously. Yes.
Yeah. So they actually need to interoperate, which means that the rest needs to be the same, which actually tells me that actually we can't advance the EBML document until the Matroska document is well specified. And that's okay. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. So I'll talk to you guys on the 22nd. Stay warm if it's cold there, because it is here. Holy shit, it's cold here. And that's about it.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.